voir comment continuer et reprendre ces voix. C'est lors du 3e forum à Porto Alegre, on a décidé, Susanna après, on était Nandita, Lucy, Betania et moi, Celita, etc., Ale, etc. On a décidé de créer ce dialogue féministe. Le dialogue féministe et se faisait hors le forum. Ensuite, on a commencé à le faire à l'intérieur du forum parce qu'on a gagné l'espace. Mais 2 ou 3 jours avant le forum, on faisait ce dialogue féministe. Voilà la construction d'un féminisme mondial. C'était quelque chose d'étonnant. Il y avait des femmes de l'Asie, de l'Afrique et de l'Amérique latine. Il y avait 12 réseaux qui promouvaient cela. Il y avait bien sûr de l'Amérique latine l'articulation féministe Mercosur. Il y avait le réseau FEM et une série d'autres réseaux, par exemple des réseaux de l'Afrique, Akinamama, Feminist et l'Inde, avec d'autres personnes. Enfin, il y avait 12 réseaux et nous avons abordé de différents sujets. Par exemple, au début, on se demandait comment construire des solidarités féministes dans le cadre des différents sujets et acteurs qui existent. Ensuite, nous avons continué avec des sujets tels que le néolibéralisme. On s'est demandé pour les corps des femmes, on a cherché à établir des limites. On a construit des articulations au niveau mondial pour ce féminisme international qui nous a beaucoup enrichi. Donc, les dialogues féministes sont parvenus après ce processus d'ouvrir une opportunité à un défi, d'avoir une vision pour le changement collectif et féministe parce qu'on l'a construit au sein des organisations et des articulations féministes ayant une perspective féministe territoriale. Je crois donc que ce processus doit être récupéré, regardé différemment. Il faut le construire à nouveau parce qu'il y a une énorme quantité d'expériences et de richesses, ainsi que de diversité. Je voulais raconter seulement une anecdote, un fait qui a eu un énorme impact. C'est parce que vous savez que l'avortement continue à être l'un des axes les plus fondamentaux de notre lutte parce que les femmes continuent à mourir et nous voulons défendre les droits de décider sur notre propre corps. Cela en Inde était beaucoup plus compliqué parce que les droits étaient déjà légaux, l'avortement était déjà légal et on a avorté les femmes parce qu'ils voulaient des enfants, des fils et pas des filles. Donc, il faut regarder nos luttes depuis toutes ces perspectives. Ce n'est pas la même chose pour tout le monde. Et voilà l'un des apprentissages qui nous a donné le forum, un regard à partir de la solidarité, l'amour dans tout le monde. Et je voulais dire aussi, pour finir, qu'il y avait bien sûr des camarades qui ne nous appuyaient pas et d'autres qui nous appuyaient vraiment. Et les jeunes, principalement, nous ont donné leur appui parce que leur agenda de lutte était beaucoup plus radical que celle d'autres mouvements. Donc, voilà pourquoi le regard des nouvelles générations est tout à fait fondamental pour le processus que nous voulons mener. Enfin, il y a beaucoup plus de choses à dire, mais je pourrais continuer, mais je vais finir maintenant. Je voulais juste partager
Oui,
les
c'est
débuts du
excellent
forum.
parce que en plus, Amélie, alors que tu parlais, les camarades se présentaient et disaient que c'était très bien de t'écouter, Gina, et d'autres camarades, d'autant de forums qui te rendent leur salut, les camarades d'attaque. Et donc là, je vais vous demander de parler à un rythme plutôt lent, parce que même si les interprètes ont beaucoup d'expérience, là, ça exige pas mal de compétences. Donc, et puis en plus, faites attention à la musique, aux enfants, au téléphone.
Sometimes children, this is what we have to deal with when we're working remotely. But okay, Nandita, now if you could just give us more info on these movements, on these articulations, Nandita.
Yep.
And if you can please introduce yourself, because we have some new faces here with us.
Right. I'm Nandita Gandhi. I'm from an organization called Akshara, but also I belong to a network of autonomous women's groups in India. And that was the network that was part of the 12 organizations that Hina spoke of. And of course, Hina's made my life a bit simpler. It's 12 o'clock in the night over here. And she said something about the feminist dialogue, so I don't have to repeat it. But I really, when I looked at the video, I could see, the vitality and the vibrancy that was there. And it really reminded me, it took me back in time. I also began to miss the dust and the heat, which we all had to bear. And it is, of course, talking about heat, we were trying to find a tent in which we could sit and meet and talk about what's happening in the World Social Forum. And we couldn't find a tent. So we found a tree. And I think that it is so symbolic now, 20 years later, to think of that tree and having made roots, like we planted roots for the next group of people that will take the World Social Forum onwards and will hopefully also do the feminist dialogues. So I would like to also quickly say a little bit more about the feminist dialogue than what Hina had said. She's covered most of the points. But I just wanted to share that the feminist dialogues was looked at as an autonomous event. It was not considered to be part of the WSF. Yeah. And why did we think of that? We thought of that because we wanted to be the insiders, but on the outside. We wanted to, from the outside, pressurize the World Social Forum to take up issues which were more relevant to us and to give us more space within. So the access and all the theoretical dialogues that went on in the International Council should take up the issues which we thought were very important. And I think that was the time when, the churning happened, and what the space that gave us. So we had the WSF space and we had this outside space also. And what did it? The first thing that I would say that, we are frogs in the well, because we are all in our own countries. We are all taking up our own issues. We are doing our own thing. But what the World Social Forum and this space of feminist dialogue gave us was that we could come together and we could understand each other, and we could understand how the issues in each country differed, even though they were the same issues. Hina spoke about abortion. They did not have the right to abortion. We had the right to abortion, but it was being used in a way that was not feminist. A man had to sign for a woman getting an abortion at that time. Plus, it was used to decimate girl fetuses. So that was and for me, coming from India, I looked at women who were Catholics, but also spoke about abortion. So it was a very different experience for me, that how could people who didn't believe in that also had a political view on something. So, you stopped being frogs in the well and you started having a more global perspective. And that is the main thing on how the feminist dialogues helped us. The feminist dialogues took place in Mumbai, the first one, then Porto Alegre, Nairobi, Belém, and it became a feminist space, a dynamic, chaotic. Believe me, it was chaotic, but it was still vibrant. And I think that in spite of all the problems, the elation of meeting, of sharing, made it all worthwhile. Right? So let me now go on to the feminist, from the feminist dialogues to the inter-movement dialogues, because that was happening parallelly too. But this was within the WSF and not outside. So unlike the feminist dialogue, which had panels and presentations and moderators, comments and discussions, the IMD, or the inter-movement dialogues format was completely different. So let me speak a little bit about how different it was. The moderator threw open the dialogue, and there were 4 speakers, and each speaker was asked to speak on issues drawn from the women's, the LGBTQI, labor, and Dalit movements. So how did it work? So a question was asked like this: how had the sexuality, labor, Dalit movements taken up the issue of women's rights or violence against women within their own movements? So the one speaker had to speak, and then the next and the next, 4 rounds of that sort, because there were 4 movements. So how did each movement confront the dilemmas and the problems of taking up that particular issue? Assume it is the violence. And what strategies did they use? So the format was quite novel, and it allowed the representatives of each movement to talk about the other issues without rancor, without accusations. In Brazil, it was really strange. In Brazil, the representative of the peasant movement, for example, quite candidly said that it was not possible for their movement to take up the issues of abortion because of the influence of the church. Now, if we were having a paper and reading a paper, I don't think that would have happened. So the core idea of the inter-movement dialogue was that as movement activists, we need to not only accept differences, diversity, and intersectionality, but also incorporate them within our movement strategies. And were we really doing that adequately? We saw the inter-movement dialogue as a methodology for a collective reflection on the intercategories and the intra-categories approaches to deepen our theory and to build bridges across movements. The concept was a success, and we had several of them in the WSF. One was also held at AVID, and I was happy to see many modifications come up within different groups. So that was what we did. Thank you very much.
Bueno, impresionante ese aprendizaje, y 20 años después...
Truly impressive. And 20 years later, it would be interesting to see what happened. As an anecdote, I'd like to tell you that interchanging opinions with other movements and councils, when I wanted to use inclusive language, anti-patriarchal language, they told me, okay, but all that anti, it's better to use less words. 20 years later, we're still thinking of words and not a language that has a political significance. And we're talking about rights and justice, but it's interesting to see how many of these campaigns and movements, campaigns on education, for example, come forward from this dialogue, from this need of speaking with other movements, and these non-sexist campaigns take us to our comrade Fanny from RPEM. From the moment that a comrade arrived at the airport and another one went to pick her up, and we started working in a regional space, we learned a lot in this forum. So now we invited Fanny to tell us how these feminist strategies work. So Fanny, you have the floor. Thank you, Ale. My name is Pa Gomez. I am from Colombia, from ARPEM, feminist organization. We bet on this forum because it's a process, as Ale was saying, from the patriarchal world, neo-colonial world, capitalist. Our proposals in the forum came from the beginning of the participation, an instance to facilitate. We articulate our PEM. We articulate with other feminist networks of Latin America and the world. We participate. Sorry, but we are facing some technical issues. I think the speaker is having some technical difficulties.
En cumplimiento de su misionalidad, REPEN impulsó dentro del foro iniciativas y campañas por el derecho a la educación.
Conducted some campaigns for rights to education, along with other rights. Right to education for all the women, Black women, indigenous women, Afro descendants. Sorry, but the speaker seems to be having some technical difficulties, so it's difficult to understand the message. We're really emphasizing on gender and race and the intersection of gender and race throughout the entire life of women. We were convinced that education is a core right for every person. That's why in the forum, we articulated all our actions across different movements that fought for political rights, sexual rights, economic rights. In these 20 years of participation, we worked with indigenous people, village people, people who made up our network. And we eliminated these patriarchal attitudes that restricted our movement, that limited our movement. We articulated our agendas with other movements, and we visualized the need for change, and that change could not happen if the women were not a core part of the change. We wanted greater presence. We wanted more female presence and more diversity. Here with our PEM comrade, we wanted to privilege the bond that we work with the forum of articulating local, national, international, and global agendas in order to unite our strengths and our efforts. Because we consider that this was a learning space of those concrete connections that were going around in the world in capitalist and patriarchal agendas. And we wanted women to participate, to have a key role, and to not be excluded, and to not have access to the resources that men had in our community. So I wanted to present this articulation, this connection between the year 92 and 2010, we launched a program that launched small and medium-sized company led by women in almost every country in Latin America with the purpose of implementing a process to alphabetize women, to assist them economically, and to comprehend, for women to comprehend the economy of the world, local, regional, and international economies. And with feminist economies, we launched this movement, this incentive to participate in the Finance Conference for Development fostered by the UN. So all of these reflections of macroeconomic impact were present. So in order to achieve this connection, many women participated in several forums, especially in Porto Alegre, in workshops and solidarity workshops, to really foster this feminist initiative, and they presented experiences, they shared their incentives, which opened up a lot of doors for women. So I'd like her to share her testimony with us today. She works in a village in a region in Colombia, and she's a feminist worker, to show how the forum has taught her how to connect the global and the local. Emilia? Hello, everyone. Good afternoon to everyone. I really like to share what the forum means for these popular movements that we've been working in many instances. To tell you what the first participation in Porto Alegre was for me, it was a unique moment, and I didn't know what was happening. To see these women sharing how they feel, what they perceived, what they had in front of them, all those things that us from the roots had never truly talked about. So that first window that was opened, to be in a place that is far away from Colombia, that happens to many women, they had the opportunity to be speaking about the same topic, the same struggles that we were all having. And for us, that was very enriching. It was a very enriching experience to start building something new in my life. To say that the forum for these organizations, these popular organizations, is a great opportunity. The opportunity that opened up doors so that we could train and get to know key topics to lead processes on things like economy, politics, culture, how these topics were in the lives of women.
For us,
And set a
understanding
path.
that from the macro level affected the micro level and created the necessity of having an analysis, of creating a process of training our participation. This was what opened up our doors to that knowledge, to speak about important topics like the neoliberal policies, how this impacted our lives, how these new programs and projects of privatizations, for instance, of services, health services, water services, how those policies impacted ourselves and created a greater responsibility towards caring tasks or topics like activities that we as women develop and carry out and that do not create any income for us. So in that sense, we had a workshop given by Janine Anderson, a Peruvian feminist, with whom we spoke about several topics. With others, we spoke about economy. We started seeing these topics and we saw that it had a lot to what was happening globally. The economy, from a power stance, power position, annuls, denies the life of women, denies our own. Armenia, can you hear me? I'm sorry, but we have little time and we have many other comrades on this first roundtable. So if you can wrap up. So power and the economy are men things. So we started to see how they function this patriarch world. To wrap up, the forum to us opened up and allowed us to extend our wings, to learn and to learn, allowed us to speak about topics that were denied to us. Thank you very much. It opened the door to us to have the forum in a higher position. This was very important for the communities. Thank you very much. Thank you, Armenia. Just to see you since the first forum was a pleasure. We shared many coconuts, a lot of heat in Porto Alegre. So it was very interesting that push you gave. Today, economic justice is key, and without the feminist economy point of view, the World Social Forum cannot debate social justice. So I want to give the floor to our comrades from Italy, from the European Forum. Yes, I'm here. Perfect. If you can introduce yourself. I know that time is short. Actually, we have 5 minutes each and we have 2 more roundtables. So thank you very much. Introduce yourself. Hello. Thank you for inviting me. I prefer to read because Spanish is not my mother tongue. I'm Mari. I'm a non-binary person. I have been participating in the forum since 2001 and this marvelous experience of local forum until they became active. I'm in Non Andimeno right now. We are more than dissident because dissident is a norm that we do not want to recognize. My path from the European World Social Forum has led me to one of the point of view of feminisms, which is the eco-transfeminisms and multi-species transfeminism. Eco means revolution in the capitalist system and establishing a relationship between humans and non-humans, earth, land, water, air as living objects being. So it's been really important, the movements against earth murder, which has been very important in the last few years. Transfeminist means an urgency from the feminist movements, including forums, to have intersectionality as a practice in our work. If we want to change things, we need to change the hierarchy between these categories, which are the basis of this system, and create social and economic exclusion. We live in a capitalist world, and we think from oppressed bodies, and we need to build resilience to really change. And bodies, we need to name them. It's women's bodies, but also women without, bodies of other people, like trans people. And I define by this word women, non-women, or transvestites, any people, Black people, disabled people, those who are stigmatized because of their sexual work. All those people are included. And then trans species, a word that is not anti-species, because it's based on the power of human beings above all other feeling bodies. We are colonizing and destroying other species. So this is the cause of the pandemic. We are putting animals into cages. We're raping them. We're sterilizing them. We are killing them to give profit to multinational companies. Transfeminism needs to act, because we need to achieve this goal of fighting the structural aspect of this system. From our plural voices, we need to recognize, acknowledge ourselves, name ourselves, and take politic space. Horizontality that we have explored in local social forums is one of the experiences that has to be delved into deep, because I have had the luck to see this in Spain. Words as consensus, which many times are only words, have been applied. We define a now that I am in Italy again, we have created a plan against gender violence, which establishes that femicides and violence is the tip of an iceberg of this violent system we need to abolish. We are working now from an invitation from Chile in a trans-feminist and anti-patriarchal network, trans country assembly, which will be held on French on February the 7th. In this network, we have people from all over the world, and we do not have the presence of Africa and Asia and the Middle East, and this is a very big problem. What can we do from this World Social Forum? We can make a space, precisely. We need to acknowledge a feminism practice not as a marginal space or a day of discussion. We need to look to a possible and urgent change in the world. The revolution will be eco-feminist or it will not be. We can achieve this together. Thank you very much. It was really nice hearing you, Mari. If you can put that that call or that assembly on the chat or your mail, it would be great. Nancy, I know that we're short in time. I'm sorry. I know you have other activities, so I give the floor to Nancy Kachingwe. If you can introduce yourself.
Tell us a little bit in 4 or 5 minutes about how was it Nairobi 2007.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, perfect, Nancy.
Yes, lovely.
Hi, I'm in the middle of a power cut.
Oh.
So this is as good as the lighting is going to get right now. Since I can't do much better and it's about 8 o'clock. But thank you so much for inviting me on the panel. Congratulations for organizing it. I was in Nairobi, although much more as a tourist, I must say, than an active organizer. We had tried to get a couple of people who were in the organizing committees in Nairobi. There was Feminist Dialogues, as Gina mentioned, that was organized. I think the third Feminist Dialogues that was organized. So unfortunately, we couldn't get anyone, but I hope that we'll carry on these kinds of retrospective sessions, thinking about what the World Social Forum has meant to us, and how we can continue with its vision of another world is possible, and how we can even, as we're talking about now, improve the types of engagements across with many different groups that have often, unfortunately, been excluded, wanted to be part of WSF, but often have not necessarily been able to find their space and place and home within there. So the Nairobi Forum was the first one to happen in Africa, and maybe it's one of the things we can think about around that is sort of the geographical engagements of the World Social Forum. Africa, of course, is a large continent. There were about 70,000 people who were there. It was quite difficult to get the forum to Nairobi. I think there had to be quite a lot of sort of insistence that it was important to have a WSF on the African continent, and this sort of, I guess, speaks to a sort of the marginality of Africa as a continent in global affairs, and often also in the affairs of in the affairs and the thinking and the mobilizing around civil society. It's true that in much of the continent, I mean, there's been massive changes and massive movements for changes. I think in the last few years, we saw how there were mass protests that in Sudan, for example, where the Bashir, who had a long-standing authoritarian military regime, had been there. Big struggles for democracy and democratic governance. But the post-colonial era really battered social movements and the momentum in building social movements. So trade unions are relatively small in most of the countries because the majority of people are in informal sectors. Most African countries are classified as least developed countries. So there isn't, a lot of sort of potential of funds and resources around sort of engaging around the global issues that the World Social Forum is engaged around. And I think Africa also sort of suffers its own trap, even though we're the one continent where it seems every so often someone will pop up and talk about recolonizing Africa, because situation there is so terrible, and that colonization was good for Africa. Those kinds of discussions sort of happen in Africa. I'm not sure if they happen in other parts of the global South, but it's sort of one of those the kinds of conversations and the image of Africa that tends to be portrayed, especially in the international media, has also contributed to this idea of, you know, unfortunately speaking, in the dark of a dark continent, which it is not. But I think that the World Social Forum, in addition to the holding of the forum in Nairobi, which for us was really successful. It was, you know, one of the World Social Forums where we actually, you know, ended up not being a small group of Africans, but a very large group of Africans being in the majority. I think it really helps to see the World Social Forum moving from place to place. It shouldn't necessarily be always such a rare event that it happens, because the issues that are being discussed within the forum are really things that, for example, I know definitely in Africa, we need to speak more about. We are often quite internally focused and everything is blamed on corruption, and we often fail to see some of the connections in our policy discussions between the global sort of global capitalism, neoliberalism, and what's happening within the continent itself, particularly around things like extractives. So the movement building and the issues that are being raised within the World Social Forum are of particular importance to Africa and to resistance to imperialism. And what's particularly important as well about the World Social Forum is it offers these opportunities for South-South cooperation as well. It's often difficult to meet with movements from either Latin America or Asia outside these kinds of spaces of the World Social Forum in the way that we do. We see our own agendas. I think for a lot of Africans who have gone to other social forums in Porto Alegre, this has also been extremely revealing to actually see how civil societies organize in other countries, and it offers a lot of dynamism. I know that there was a Senegalese rapper who had been to a World Social Forum, and it changed what he rapped about completely. So even at the cultural level, I think they formed a group even in Senegal that resisted the changing of the constitution. So they were even at the forefront of movement building. I should also just add maybe that the World Social Forum inspired the Africa Social Forum. So straight after the first World Social Forum, we moved towards organizing Africa Social Forums. And then at the sub-regional level here in Southern Africa, we were also organizing Southern Africa Social Forums. I think we must have had about 5 of them or so. Maybe recently we haven't had so many, but that has been, even that has continued to have a legacy on the continent in terms of organizing and meeting, particularly against sort of imperialism and neoliberal issues. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done. I hope we will be seeing a World Social Forum happening in Africa again. Sorry, I also wanted to just mention from the Feminist Dialogues, that was where we launched the African Feminist Charter in Nairobi. So that was one of the official launches, and the African Feminist Charter has been sort of a set of principles and guidance in terms of like putting on paper when people say what's feminism and what's African feminism. That's one of the things, and it was presented and talked about and launched at the Nairobi Social Forum. So, you know, new generations of activists in the continent are coming up doing fantastic things. You know, you may have heard of Roads Must Fall movement in South Africa. These are all young activists probably, you know, things have changed a lot compared to where we were in Nairobi. Feminism and African feminism is getting more and more vibrant. Catherine is going to be speaking a bit later on from South Africa as well. But you know, the agendas and the agendas and the issues around it really require us to continue to engage within the social forum and within feminist spaces. And so I think that we should try and build on this legacy of the World Social Forum, but definitely go in with our critiques around issues about the gaps and issues that have been often neglected and seen as not important. We'd like to see more African women on the International Council, not just women, and in those spaces. So I'll just end there. That was my sort of sense of and thank you. I may have to leave a little bit early, around 10, but I'll stay on. Bye. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Nancy. Y gracias porque también es una realidad, ¿no? Esta cuestión del acceso a la energía cuando se piensa en espacios virtuales.
Thank you very much, Nancy. When we think of these remote conversations, we have to think of the different locations and the different times, like different factors like light, electricity. So thanks for taking the time. Thanks for taking the time. We have two more comrades, Pica Torres and then Ciranda, to speak to us about the Women's Assembly. We have a 30-minute delay and we had a hack in the chat, but don't worry, we have comrades who are helping out with this situation, so I'm sorry if we are a bit behind. We have a very strong second session. So Tita, or then Fatima or Rita, you have the floor. And then Nancy, if you can just drop your contact in the chat. Thank you very much. Tita? Or Fatima? I don't see Tita online. Maybe.
Beijo, Rita. Se você...
Eu posso.
Você
Posso
pode falar? Ok.
Posso,
Fátima, pode se apresentar, né? Obrigada.
Sim, claro. Eu sou Fátima Froy, sou da Ciranda, Comunicação Compartilhada. Sou de Salvador.
I'm Fatima Froy. I'm from El Salvador. It's an international organization in São Paulo and Bahia. I built with Rita the forum in Bahia in 2018. It was a forum that, from the Brazilian perspective, in a time of struggle, internalization, and female struggle, a very important moment 2 years after the strike. It was a misogynist movement, and our first president, in a moment of hope and articulation with women, for the first time in a World Assembly, we had a moment for us for the construction of this assembly, and we opened the forum with a big impact. That was maybe the great sign of what we are living today. The movement of fascism. We opened up the forum with the death of Maria Franco. It was the first news in the opening. And then she published a book. So that patriarchy symbolism was present in the forum in the northeast of Brazil, in El Salvador. So our possibility to react, there were violent reactions, and that all the abilities to move forward in the right to our bodies. The movement of women has moved forward since then, and it has come a long way. But in that forum, we did a women's assembly in the middle of the streets, practically. Our struggles were internal struggles, had a lot of invasions and difficulties, but we were victorious in the end because we were able to carry out the assembly, and we passed for the first time. Passed the ruling for the first time with a special ruling, with special legislation, and that forum came from the main event, which was the assassination of Marielle. And then the country elected Bolsonaro, President Poldat, because we were in a parallel activity that had the same times. So that assembly that organizes these Brazilian women and these movements since March 8th for the construction of a group that presented many difficulties. We cannot just leave the struggle, exit the struggle, this racist struggle. Sorry, I'm very emotional remembering that first moment. So at this moment, it's quite clear that our fights are non-negotiable, that we need to continue fighting every day. And today we are reorganizing. So for us, Brazilian women in the pandemic, with all the difficulties that we faced, that forum, that it was so victorious, that it was so successful, it was so important to us. It was a landmark. I'm so sorry, but I am truly, truly emotional at this moment.
Para apoyar lo que está pasando con Bolsonaro y, como ustedes dicen, un genocida. Te abrazamos, esta imposibilidad de poder, ¿no?, sostenernos.
Out to you. I wanted to ask if Tita, who also had stories of the pandemic and of women's struggles during the pandemic, if she can share her thoughts. I don't know if she's there. So a lot of strength, our efforts and strength go out to you, Fatima, because of what happened, because of that murder that occurred. Tita, are you there? Yes, I'm here. Welcome, Tita. It's good to see you. Hello to everyone from Costa Rica, but from Mesoamerica. Us feminists, Central American feminists, call ourselves Mesoamerican, and we are usually not that many. But we've been in these spaces, in these forums. We participated in many initiatives. My name is Tita Torres. I'm from a Mesoamerican movement of women, which is called Mesoamerican Women in Resistance for a Good Life, for a fair life. We were born from the struggles because of free trade agreements, against free trade agreements, especially in Central America and in the Dominican Republic. With the US, we were truly affected by that. I also belong to RPEM and other feminist movements here in the country. I would very quickly like to extend this warm regard that I'm sharing with you comes from the resistance, from a resistance in which we have been able to live through this pandemic, which we started with an anti-racist, anti-liberal, anti-patriarchal movement, an effort to re-exist, which translates to take away areas that depend on the market. We are about 15,000 women in the movement, and we are from Mesoamerica because we're very close to Rossi, from the southeast Mexico to Panama. And I'd quickly like to say that this resistance that we have fostered because of the pandemic, and in which we have participated in many world initiatives, we've done it from this small location of the American continent. Central America, Mesoamerica, is a region from the southeast Mexico to Panama, and we are very close to Diablo, very close to the devil, as you could say, which really limits us because we are truly exposed to climatic change. We have shorelines and coasts in the Pacific and in the Caribbean Sea. Except for El Salvador, all the other countries, this is like a shoreline. It's a, yes, we could say shoreline. It's a region that is very poor, that has suffered a lot. It has had wars in the 80s, peace treaties in Guatemala, a war with Nicaragua, that we truly regret the results of that war. And today, we are one of the most violent regions in the planet. The amount of murders of men, mostly, women too, but men mostly. Now I'm going to talk about feminist murders, but the murders is truly creepy and horrifying. The women that have died. We are a region colonized by drug trafficking. Drug trafficking has invaded our region. It's invaded by cocaine from the countries to the south, to the north, and towards Europe. We're a very violent region where being a woman is a higher risk, is truly a higher risk. And I want to share this with you because Mesoamerica and Central America is always like in the limbo because we're such small countries, but truly important things and resonating things have happened in our country. We are a region that has become poor. We are not poor, but we have become poor because we have resources. We have aquifers. We have oil. We have many resources. We have that great channel, that great capitalist penetration in the neoliberal expression today, which is the Panama Channel. So we are a region that is very risky. And so I would like to speak about immigration now. I'm sure that you've heard of the immigration bans or the immigration movements that we have from this region to the US. So I can tell you, comrades, that immigration is a result of the impoverishment of this region. This is an immigration zone. Everybody is immigrating to the US, but not just the Honduran population that has been reprimanded because of the military governments, that invaded the population and that are being returned to from Guatemala to Honduras, and a massive immigration where there is deep suffering of Honduran trans women. So Honduras and El Salvador, the amount of women who are murdered is truly horrifying, almost the same as in Guatemala. It's truly terrible. So this immigration movement or wave is leaving from Honduras to the USA, but also in my country, in Costa Rica, we have an African population who are begging and asking at stoplights. So we have an extracontinental population, people immigrating from Africa, from Asia to Brazil, and then to the USA, crossing the north of South America and all of Central America. So we have extracontinental immigration with people from Africa, Haiti, Cuba. So this is truly the horrifying part of globalization. Thank you, Tita. We need to let you go. We don't have enough time. But what I wanted to say was the Immigration Social Forum is the themed forum that had the chapter for the Americas and got together last year. One of the great challenges was to find who to articulate with. It's difficult to find contacts, and I see that there are comrades here in the chat, whether immigrants or that work with immigrant organizations. So I hope that you can put your information in the chat, because these thematic forums, sometimes they're encapsulated in the event and then you lose touch. So it would be great if you can drop your contact information here to see what we can do about that. Now we're going to the second part of this forum to remember these challenges, and this that brings us back to reality, these murders, these homicides that happened to trans people. So the social forum today, the World Social Forum today, we are saying that it's working, but what are the challenges? So now we're going to give the floor to somebody who was at that origin of this World Social Forum to get us up to date and tell us where the forum is today on a political level, on a feminist movement level. So I'd like to give the floor to our next speaker. Betania, how much time do I have? 8 to 10 minutes. Thank you. Thank you, Alejandra. Thank you, everyone, for being here in this difficult moment. I am Maria Betania Avila. I live in Northeast Brazil. I'm from a feminist organization called SOS Corpo, a Women Institute for Democracy, and that is 40 years old this year. And I am also truly emotional because I'm an articulation of Brazilian women and the articulation of the Mercosur. So we are here from the beginning. And I'm going to put some questions. in this platform. We are building this process. We build the process. We're builders, and we criticize as well, and we were cast aside at one moment, but we want to transform the forum, and we want to continue with this forum. And we have issues such as, what is the relevance of the forum for the feminist movement, for its local and international force, and what is the advancement of the feminist movement for the forum? What is the process? We have to think if the forum creates positive results around the world. Does it build dialogue? Can we think together? Can we exchange ideas? The World Forum at this moment, what is the effect of strengthening these fights, of putting our efforts into these fights? For me, all of these are questions that need to be answered so that this can be a space within the social movement, built of people from all over the world, pluralities of people. Because if we don't have these pluralities because of the process, because it's not just being present in one moment, we have to be present as a process. So it's sort of contradictory. And in order to live these moments, it only makes sense that we have to stand together in these moments. If the forum really were present in the social movements in the world, in the protests, in confrontations, and to provide their efforts and their strength to the fights around the world, it has to be present in collective fights and individual fights, whether they are remote or non-remote. We are all remote because we are all far away. There is no central remote. We are all in different places. So we need to be there from our territories, from our local spaces, but fighting globally.
We need to create roots with local mobilizations where this does not turn into an empty resource without concrete goal. So this is completely strategic. The feminist movement is a constitutive subject of this forum. We need to use this current movement to create a path towards Mexico, so that Mexico becomes key for us as feminist movements who are redefining the process. The reality of the world requires us to reorganize, to articulate struggles with the global struggles, and actually oppose the already established order. We have an urgent topic to address: the life of people all around the world. This is urgent, and we need to have this locally and globally, and it has to be articulated, because there's not one single contradiction. There are several contradictions that show what Maria Orozco said. You can accumulate capital, or is it life the problem? So the struggle is key. The pandemic is a consequence. It's a consequence of this system of violence, of destruction, a racist, colonialist, capitalist system. Its goal is to destruct. This system produces and reproduces by destroying things, as Marx said before, of course. So the pandemic is our way of life, this system that is imposing upon ourselves this way of life. And I'm sorry, but I will say that we have this tragedy in Brazil of a racist, male chauvinist, transphobic, homophobic government. So all of us, we have this urgency in relation to local struggles and international struggles as well. I think this is challenging us at the forum, is the relationship between autonomy and the capacity of reinventing the forms of organization and democracies and their juncture. The main directive should not be all centralized hierarchical forms that are criticized by the feminist movement, because these are organizational forms that are centered in power struggles, power relationships. The main political subject and other political subjects are here in this confluence. If we do not struggle against this, there are no other new possibilities of strengthening ourselves or our systems. There are many things and many political subjects. All political subjects are everywhere, and they are all key. They are all in the front line. So the challenge is to create this new relationship that requires alliances, but also has some conflict, because we need to articulate together to go towards a single direction and face this problem democratically. We need to have a scale of organization to struggle against external conflicts. There is no democracy without conflict and without democratic forms and ways of oppose those conflicts. We need to have strategies that are created from dialogue. One of the problems in this forum is lack of acknowledgement, of acknowledging causes, collective subjects in which we are embedded. We have to have a dialectic process. We need to go back and go forward in this path. We need to have an awareness which is the product of dialogue. We need to change in this path to organize ourselves and have proposals. This cannot be a pre-established model. Priorities have to come up from this juncture. As a feminist movement, our strength is this. In plurality, in democracy, we have this strength. In all these spaces, we are required to have articulation. There's many of us, and we need to be a movement of all revolts from women, of all struggles, of all those who are already in place and those who will be coming up of our dialogue. Movements are an obligation almost. We need to move forward in time as well as in spaces. We need to welcome new subjects and welcome new problems that challenge us. We need to revolt, become revolutionary, to have transformation in political spaces in which we are embedded and in the social life as a whole. When we are together, we make up, we create, and what it's not in theory or in fixed models, we can create. We need to be strong locally to have an internationalist movement to face the capitalism, this system that is patriarchal, racist, which is always destroying our bodies, which are supported by domination and exploitation by few, mostly white men from the north. So we need to face all these problems. Our greatest conquest is the feminist movement itself, the organization of women, the common transformation as subjects in history. Our presence in this organized world as a political subject is our conquest, our main conquest. It's from there that our freedom comes up, the opportunity to be emancipated. It is the reason why we struggle. Many of us have died for that cause, and for those we mourn. They fought to have a feminist movement, and they changed, and we changed our lives. We need to have political spaces that are actually important, so that we exist as organized political subjects, and that we can change, so that we can change the world together. We need to be radically anti-patriarchy, anti-racism, anti-colonialism, and anti-capitalists. With all the areas included in those concepts, we need to build connections between ourselves and with other movements as a dialectic process. We need to be a living presence, a strong presence that is part of its ongoing changing process. If the World Social Forum has the desire to contribute to a different world, it will achieve this with us. Without us, there is no other possible world. And so the forum has to be anti-patriarchy, anti-capitalism, anti-racism, anti-colonialism. It has to be a process that it's constantly opposing and struggling radically. It has to contribute to increase our capacity to oppose and struggle against our enemies, because our enemy is actually huge, and they have a huge ability to destroy and to exploit. So we go to Mexico together to transform the World Social Forum, to strengthen our forum, to rethink the forum and its processes. It's the way it organizes itself in order for us to be stronger, and also the social movements to change the world, to transform and change life itself here and globally. Marvelous, Betania. Thank you very much. Who wants to be left out of this movement? Because many of our comrades, while you were speaking, were saying some things. Feminists are not all the same. We are in a diversity, and actually, no. We are full of diversity, but we are here together. And Carlota from Mozambique, who has been very patient with us, will be forging a dialogue with what you said. From her dialogue with from her fight, her struggle that has to do with religion, with colonialism, race, class, poverty, inequality. Carlota, are you there? If you can introduce yourself. Good evening from Mozambique. I'm Carlota Inhamusa. I'm part of the group of women in Sahara. This is a group of women that self-convened, created a resistance. This space is mainly led by women in communities, those women who are illiterate, who live in the fields, in the countryside, and do not have access to networks, to internet, to television. Many times they cannot have a strong voice to be present and to speak on behalf of their rights. So we develop a sense of solidarity, resistance, and topics that we delve into as a group. We have militarism, which a language that is used to give a sense of security, safety. As you all know, we are facing a new war that has come up recently that is affecting one of the northern provinces. In this area, women suffered quite a lot because their land, their territories, land in which they live, in which they carry out their lives, has to be abandoned. They have to flee those places because men calling themselves insurgent are attacking, are killing them. So they need to flee. It's really painful for us because it's part of
que estão a explorar os recursos. Infelizmente, as multinacionais estão lá a operar.
Multinational companies are, unfortunately, have been some say in this, but populations, women cannot have their lives there because we have insurgent men. So in this fight, in this struggle, we understand that we are fighting patriarchy and capitalism. It's a fight that we need to have, that we need to carry out. We understand that this struggle is related with our natural resources. Natural resources are causing women to lose their rights. We are happy to be sharing this with you in the World Social Forum. We are very happy because our struggle is the same as yours. Is the same as the one you are sharing with us, all of the movements present here. Our struggle as women is a struggle that is related with other women in the world. And in this struggle, in this resistance we are carrying out related to issues of militarism, we have made some connections with women in Colombia, for instance, to look for experiences of how to carry out this struggle against militarism. So we're happy to be part of this group. We will learn from you because this is a new space for us, a challenging space. Right now, we are in solidarity in Cabo Delgado. We are trying to help those women in this area at war, and besides helping them in solidarity with clothes and food, we're also helping them to strengthen themselves so that they are strong and they have their rights. So we establish discussion debates with them so we can teach them how they can claim their rights, because even though they are losing everything, humanitarian aid is very weak and women are really suffering. On the other hand, we're also we want that those women have financial autonomy. We want them to learn to do things, to have their own income, even though they are refugees, because they are fleeing their own land to be safer. It's not easy at all, because there where these conflicts are taking place is an area that it's very complicated. There's a lot of lack of trust, let's say. So we organized ourselves in campaments, in camps, in solidarity, in which women organize themselves. They prepare the camps. They do not use the system of the NGOs, of being in hotels. So it's all based on what women can actually do. We resist from there. We create our own agenda. We share that agenda with governments. This struggle has been really important for us because there are many spaces in which we can make a contribution. And besides Cabo Delgado, Mozambique was in an armed conflict in which the government, in that process, we acted politically, we intervened with a document that we claim we need to have military outside of this land because they do not respect principles. What our resolution 1325 resolution recommends is when there is a mobilization like this related to privilege and to women's needs, we have meetings and we claim, and we actually achieved this goal of having our agenda being seen, being taken into account by the government, and even at some point we managed to have results, positive results. So to be sharing these experiences with you in the World Social Forum, where there are many experienced women, we probably do not have as much experience as you and how feminism is carried out. We are doing it in our own way. We are resisting in our own way. And we are in spaces in which we are being kicked out. But we will say no to that.
Neste painel eu não posso escrever.
We are doing a lot. In this panel, I cannot say everything, but I can get the material to you, something as a reference. We are truly happy because we feel that we are doing a fair fight. We are gaining space. We are having a voice, which is what we want. We want to have a voice so that our messages, our ideas can be on the agenda, so that those people who foster the agenda for oppression against women are weakened. And we are happy and satisfied with the process, but we need the solidarity of all the comrades, because if it's just us, we will not be able to achieve the results that we're looking for. We have a very important and significant fight here before us. Thank you, Carlota.
Estou fechando e querendo dizer que nós somos uma rede que englobamos em Sofá, na
I would
província.
just like to say that we are a network in the province of Sofala. We have more than 40 women's organizations, individual activists who are volunteers. We train them in the feminist training. We use that name where we talk about topics for gender transformation and how women change. We also started a regional women's movement that involve many women. We did sessions and trainings with more than 20 women, and they are community women. On their own, when they know that there is a workshop, they prepare and they assist the workshop, the camping. Whether they are invited or not, they move on their own. So we are self-organizing, and we hope that all of you can contribute and provide their contributions to support us in our struggle, especially the struggle of militarism in Cabo Delgado, which is a fight connected with capitalism. Thank you very much. There were many things to say, but I have to leave. Thank you, Carlota. If you can leave your email to see if anybody would like to contact you, so that we can continue working together.
Si vos se pode escrever aí no chat.
Yes, put it there in the chat. Thank you very much. To all my comrades here from Mozambique and from all over the world, goodbye. Thank you for your patience. Shanit was going to speak about the Panamazonic Forum. Please bear in mind the time, because we have to finish the sessions.
Okay,
Okay, Shanit. Yes, we always have the time factor in these events, but I'm going to try to provide a very brief presentation to give the chance to my other colleagues to intervene. I am Shanet Lozano, Colombian activist, feminism, labor right defender. I live in Colombia. They asked me to share my experience of the women participation in the Panamazonic Forum, which was born in the year 2002. We've done 9 forums within the social forum framework, and it's an experience and a space for articulation and action, and spaces that articulates countries that share the Amazon basin, where we have 9 countries: Brazil, Peru, Ecuador, Colombia, Suriname, and Guayanas. one of the main motivations was that it was a region that is not very connected. It's sort of isolated from the rest of the continent, so we have to look for spaces to make ourselves visible. I'm not going to go into much detail with issues like the Amazon is not just the basin, but it's a continuum that impacts the whole region and the whole world, so it has a global interest and everything that has to do with the Amazon basin. And it's a space for the defense of the Amazon region and this vast, vast, vast territory, which is of great economic value because of its diversity and because we have the presence of ethnic diversity and many, many indigenous people that live in this area. The participation and the experience of the women in this forum, in this Pan-Amazonic forum, is not different than the one that Kina has shared in the beginning. So there were no spaces in the forum, but there was much participation in the spaces surrounding the forum. And this generated questions and issues and gave origin so that women could organize themselves in the forum and start organizing activities on their own, activities that were not in the official agenda of the forum. This generated, of course, some tension that women were dividing, that they were generating divisions, that we have to be everywhere. But nonetheless, this is the struggle, the everyday struggle. It's a way of saying, here we are, you should recognize what is happening to us. And this is what is happening in the Amazon with the population and the territory, which is also different for the women who live there. To have that territory, that space, what they face is not the same as what men who live there have to face. So this was an increasing struggle of women who were placing themselves in the forum to participate, to be invited to international committees. And for the forum of the year 2017, we achieved something extraordinary. The women got together in the forum in Peru, and the women, especially Peruvian women, who were drivers of climate change, contacted women organizations to promote an alliance, a feminist alliance between indigenous women, feminist women, Andean women, in order to make a proposal and put it in the forum, which is why after discussions and after these efforts of these women, we were able to position the idea that women should have a particular space in the Pan-Amazonian Forum. So there, two ideas came from that forum. Two initiatives, not exactly two ideas, two initiatives. One, that within the forum framework, we had to foster and campaign for defense of our bodies and the initiative of the Court of Justice of the Pan-Amazonian and Pan-Andean women. These initiatives came from the reflection of how to acknowledge and understand the experience, the life, and the body of women, and to create this relationship, this vision, this comprehensive vision based on their experience and their knowledge and their thoughts. And so we started seeing that what women were doing, that the companies and the projects drug trafficking, and all these situations that are so complex and so hurtful that they were affecting the lives of women in that region in a different way. But not just different because they were women, different because since they were from different groups, since they lived in villages or they were farmers or they were from different regions with their experience, with their ethnic diversities, all of these situations are different for the women who live there. So that was the big challenge, how to generate a dialogue with these women to see how these visions and these experiences could be present in the forum. So it's been difficult. It's been a difficult challenge because we have to recognize that we have a way of thinking that is sort of homogeneous or unilateral, that we don't tend to think, well, if this happens to me, it's happening to everybody. So sometimes that is deep in our core. And so we have to generate awareness and listen to these other preparatory processes that we see from these indigenous women. You have to let us speak. You don't speak for us. You are our allies, and you have to make sure that we have a voice. So this has been a difficult challenge. It's been very interesting, and we are still learning. In the past forum, we did the second Women's Tribunal for the defense of rights of women, and the purpose was to generate a space to reflect publicly due to a series of cases that happened in different countries about the ways in which the economic model and the activist model, and within that framework of patriarchy, how that affects Amazonic and Andean women who live in these regions. And this led us to think that in different countries, we had to analyze cases, specific cases dealt with these women. And then we prepared a session where we presented these cases, these recognized women of the region, and we put them before the tribunal. So with that result, what we did is to have a tool, to have a tribunal that generates awareness. Of course, it's symbolic. It doesn't have any legal effect, or it's not legally binding, but it does become an example. It's an example of retribution of rights, rights to our bodies and to life. In the last tribunal, we analyzed cases of highways that are being opened and built in the Amazon region by companies or mining projects that are going into these areas, and how they're affecting those indigenous communities and they're impacting on women's lives. So this has been the exercise. This is the FOSPA process. And so we think that we have to move forward in acknowledging these women, to acknowledge us as women, to incorporate new female voices and new visions in the possibility to articulate and build together, and to be stronger together, and therefore have stronger proposals for the World Social Forum. I cannot think of a forum without the presence of the women who are from this region. Thank you. And thank you, Jeanette. And maybe if you can leave your contact information and the website of the Pan-Amazonic Forum.
Gracias. Y Catherine, Robin.
Thank you.
Si te puedes presentar tú y también decirnos.
Catherine Robinson, if maybe you can introduce yourself and tell us those topics that resonate from the South Feminist Futures from the festival.
Thank you, Ale. I hope you can hear me. My name is Catherine Robinson. I'm a queer feminist from South Africa and a member of South Feminist Futures. You heard Nancy earlier. Nancy is actually one of the founding members of South Feminist Futures, one of the founders. Thank you very much for this invitation, but obviously thank you so much to everyone who's come before me. It's been really interesting hearing about the evolution of kind of feminism within the World Social Forum and how far the forum has to go. Just as a bit of background, South Feminist Futures is a transnational association of feminist activists and networks from across the global South and the South in the North. And it's committed to building solidarity and shape collective visions and agendas for the future. If you'd like to learn more, I can paste some information later. South Feminist Futures hosted a festival from the 7th to the 11th of December last year. And it was a week of art and activism and dialogue, reflection and celebration to reclaim a centuries-long history of women and gender diverse people fighting against slavery, colonialism, white supremacy, imperialism, racism, capitalism, and cishet patriarchy. It brought together incredible feminists from the global South and the South and the North to share power and to share strategies for resistance and dissidence. And we did so under the South Feminist Futures organizing pillars, which were reclaiming South-South internationalism, confronting hegemonies, strategies for change and resistance, a knowledge base for South feminist activism, and reimagining development. And as part of this conversation that we're having today, this conversation on feminisms and sexual dissidence and the call to think towards a more just and inclusive forum, I'll share with you two important sessions that were convened by South Feminist Futures during the festival, and not solely for the sake of feminism, human rights, justice, and inclusion, but also because if we are to truly dismantle neoliberalism, capitalism, imperialism, white supremacy, and if we are to decolonize, and if we are to advance a feminist economy, we have to recognize and resist how these forces are entrenched and sustained by a patriarchal order that is founded on the gender binary, on cis-het supremacy, on compulsory matrimony and compulsory monogamy. We held these sessions with trans and queer speakers as part of South Feminist Futures' commitment to resist white neoliberal cis-het patriarchal supremacy and to reimagine a South feminist queer future to help advance the struggle for emancipation and self-determination for queer, trans, gender fluid, and non-binary people across the globe. The one workshop we held was under the theme Confronting Hegemonies, and this had the aim of exploring the globalization of the anti-gender movement and the exportation of queer and transphobia across the global South, largely from Diablo or parts of America. This movement is having a profound impact on obviously academic freedom, comprehensive sexuality education, LGBTQ rights, reproductive justice. And of course, as some other speakers have touched on, has heinous and disastrous impacts on queer, trans, and non-binary people, hindering their access to livelihoods, social and economic rights, fundamental human rights to live in freedom and dignity. And it manifests in discrimination, incarceration, hate crimes, violence, and murder of trans and queer people. Another workshop under the theme of building a new knowledge base for South feminist activism, we aimed at exploring and amplifying queer perspectives on repression, resistance, and struggles for freedom and self-determination to help inform current struggles against racial capitalism, patriarchy, colonialism, and how the carceral state's use of excess force and brutality is used to fortify its hegemony. So just to close off, something to think about as we move forward and how we think about reforming or transforming or reimagining spaces like the World Social Forum, but even outside of those spaces. Of course, we acknowledge that various countries and communities of transgender and trans, queer, and gender diverse folks are at different points in their struggle for recognition and rights, and that these struggles are, of course, absolutely critical for their survival. We must remain dissident, and we must not fall trap to struggles that end in recognition and rights for queer and trans and non-binary people. This often results in a false recognition and confines rights to a cis heteronormative paradigm. It's only recognition and rights on their terms, not ours. And this is rooted in patriarchy and policing, and only perpetuates the status quo. So we must not settle. And struggles that end at marriage equality, matrimony, and legal protection from discrimination, although important and potential prerequisites or steps, these do not guarantee self-determination, nor do they ensure reproductive justice. So we must remain cautious and dissident as they cannibalize and co-opt our language, pinkwashing and negotiating on patriarchal terms will not only legitimize the predation of capital and the continuation of occupation and imperialism. And this patriarchal negotiation will only fortify white, cishet patriarchal supremacy. So as feminists, we must fortify our resolve, and we must remain dissident. So as an official sign-off from South Feminist Futures, love, solidarity, power, and joy to everyone.
Thank you very much, Kath. I was in some of those sessions, and now I wish we had more, intersectionality here also. I think it's something to look in the future, but definitely thank you for bringing all these issues and also the experience of the festival. You can see in the chat some of the things that Catherine raised. So I am checking if Maria, you have some issues with time. If not, Alessandra, ¿estás ahí? Porque tú estás en Italia y con el tema del horario quizás.
Are you there because you're in Italy, and maybe with the issue of time, it's better that you participate? Are you there? Alessandra, are you there?
Sí.
Yes. Excellent. Shall I speak? Yes, Alessandra, you have the floor, and then Maria. Thank you. Hello, I'm Alessandra Mecozzi. I'm a veteran, let's say, of the forum. I've participated in almost all of them in the European continent and in the world, in the one in Porto Alegre in 2001 and in Genova in 2001 until 2013. In the years in which I worked in my trade union with feminist movements. Today, I'm retired and I work as a volunteer in the International House of Women with a feminist group, and also in a convergence with movements called Society of Care. I'm also working with an association to promote Palestine and a network to defend human rights. Thank you very much for the incredible work you have been doing in this forum and in this seminar. I'm really happy of seeing all of you here, and I'm really happy of participating once again in the World Social Forum. I'm speaking on behalf of the International House of Women. Unfortunately, the comrade that was set to speak today cannot participate because her mother has become ill, so she asked me to replace her. The experience of this house is the following. It's an open, free movement. It's a very hard life because we had to face the council in Rome. We have a mayor here, but they wanted to close down this place. Now we are still open, but we're still struggling with this. The International House is participating for the first time in this World Social Forum because it thinks this is a very important space. Even though the activity goes back a lot of years, from 1987, when the movement in Rome occupied an old building in central Rome that had been the place in which the bad ladies, let's say, between inverted commas, had been incarcerated. Then, thanks to women there, we were able to move forward, and the House of Women is an autonomous organization that provides services and help women that are in need, but also is a reference, a benchmark for women in Italy and around the world in building feminist policies. We have welcomed in solidarity many women from the north and from the south, from countries in conflict and resisting countries, such as sisters in Kurdistan and in Palestine. We have established international meetings 21st century regarding the technological, religious, and economic powers that affect us and that affect the work of women. We are connected with other networks internationally, and we want to establish contact with other houses and other women's organizations internationally. So that is why we understand this is very important to be participating for the first time in the forum in the path towards the 2022 Mexico Forum. Our system of struggle is the self-determination and the free decision as regards reproductive rights and sexual rights. This is still a priority for us. It's now endangered by the advancement of the right wing in Italy, as in most European countries and in other countries around the world. In Italy, we have Catholic fundamentalists against this freedom of women. That is why the fight against racism, sexism, both from institutions as from the popular power, is a very important priority, even for migrant women. We also host women that are victims of gender-based violence and crimes. And also we work for environmental justice and cooperate in solidarity around the world. We support art made by women. With lockdown, the situation has become very hard. We had to shut down our house and stop all our activities and our services. It was really tough, but we did not stop. On the contrary, we found immediately other forms of relating to one another and to face the path towards our goals. The experience of the pandemic is the key as regards the activities of my house. Right now, we are dealing with the so-called recovery plan held by the government, including the European funds in which many women are participating, historical leaders, environmentalists, and people from public schools, social workers, and women working at institutions. They are all different, diverse, but they are all committed to represent the strength and the unity of women. We have proposed, as a feminist point of view, the necessary urgent change of the political paradigm of caretaking tasks. This political path we are walking, which is plural and which is being led by women right now, is key in the conflict that will be established between the government and the movement as regards the new recovery plan. Everyone said that nothing will be as it was before, but this plan is actually a continuation of the capitalist movement, and all of which produce the current crisis. The plan speaks about women, but not as subjects with rights. It does not speak of positive action towards migrants. We cannot go back to normality because normality was the cause of all of what we are living through, as many of you are saying. The pandemic has brought to light what we have as contradictions that were already present before. Rich people have become richer and poor people have become poorer. So we have the obligation of struggling against this and proposing alternatives. And this is what we are trying to build. And we think about this as part of strategy and of a more wider struggle. This is why we think that the process of forum is key, and also the role of feminists in this. If there are always obstacles, but we can always think that there is the the social women forum. It would not be a bad idea. Thank you very much. We need to wrap up, Alessandra. I would like to wrap up by saying that given that in Italy, the summer, we have the G20 summit next summer, we offer you the International House of Women as a reference place, as a place for all of those who can participate. We would like to establish proposals to advance with our alternative way of thinking. Because this summit includes a day dedicated to women. So we'll see about that. Thank you very much. Alessandra, that could go to the Agora. Yes, we need to include that to the Agora together with other things. Thank you very much. Even Flora said that we had a G20 in Argentina, but some comrades, Alberta, many of our friends here were at that G20, so it's a marvelous proposal to have a women forum. This is something concrete upon which we can work. Maria Almeida, that's Doris Almeida, are you there? Good afternoon to all of you, especially good afternoon to Black women, the articulation of Black women I am representing here, and a special hello to to my comrade in Brazil, who is representing the Black Articulation movement in the World Social Forum. Ever since its foundation, we are representing Afro women and the articulation. Due to a sickness, she cannot be here, the representative. I'm Maria Dolores Almeida. I'm speaking from Amapá, the Brazilian Amazon. I am part of an organization that is affiliated to this forum, but I do not have any experience of an international level, even though I have an experience as a participant in two World Social Forum, the first in 2001 and the 2009 World Social Forum. So the organization I'm representing is now an articulation network of Black women who is made up of 20 organizations that are in all regions of Brazil. Our path has a relationship with the World Social Forum. We're also 20 years old. 20 years of existence and of incidents. We were in the first edition of the World Social Forum in Porto Alegre, which had a slogan of "Another world is possible." This was the slogan that made all women in Brazil to become mobilized, to go to the streets, because for us, there was a different world possible. This space, as many of you have already said, was a space of democracy, of ideas, to share experiences of the civil society. But unfortunately, right at that moment, I was not ready to receive that information as a Black woman. We know the World Social Forum has always had many hardships to include Black women in the agenda. Back then, there was a lot of problem with feminist movements because we had the idea of including racism as a central topic. That was our first experience. But in all the editions of the World Social Forum, we brought racism as a structural axis within our own movements, even within ourselves, within feminist women. I think the process of exclusion we suffered back then in the World Social Forum at first was an experience that took us to build collectively in another social forum, because there we became stronger. In 2001, Black women could actually make a difference. We managed to be seen, to be different. Another experience I lived through was the World Social Forum of 2009 in Belém, in Brazil, many years after the first World Social Forum, and there we were still going about racism as a central topic. And as we know, the World Social Forum in 2009 was the first in which racism was actually taken into account. And since it was held in Belém do Pará, the indigenous aspect was key due to the context, because we were living precisely in the Amazon, even though there's a great presence of Black people. In that backdrop, we had some representatives of this Black women movement, Ilma B, who is part of Cenepa, an entity affiliated to my own organization. At that forum, she was replacing another of my colleagues. And then there was a leader at the forum that was against this racial topic being included in the agenda. So we engaged in our first struggle, in our first fight from the beginning, the first meeting, so that we could position ourselves as a Black movement articulation to represent all Black women in Brazil. It was not an easy time. I was there present. And since it was held in Belém, we participated in all debates and daily meetings. And those meetings were held at night. Then we were able to participate so that our faces were seen at that forum. It was then that we could move forward. We managed to move forward. It was in 2009 when us Black women made our greatest advancement for our own rights. We managed to include the word racismo. We had 3 instances in which we were able to participate. At the university, with our Afro agenda, at the campus of the university, and in the tent, at the Afro tent, we were able to place a banner which was very important for the forum because we received many visits, many people came to take pictures. And it was also the place in which we developed our own self-organized activity that we were not able to do in the first forum. And I think that the 2009 forum was important because we had the Day of Pan-Amazonian people. We saw a conquest. These were 2 days of very intense debates. We had spokesperson of all communities around the areas, quilombolas, for instance. We worked with environmentalists as well and other feminist movements.
It was the presence of, there was the presence of some of the presidents like Evo Morales, Maduro, Lula, and at that moment, it came up the thematic of good living, the good living. And that's when we brought that theme to our March of Black Women. I'm finishing up. And in the year 2012, and the March of 2015 and 2018 in the forum, we had the Permanent Forum of Black Women. To conclude, I'd like to say that this forum has to incorporate feminism, those feminisms present in the world. It has to be a forum that not an anti-sexist, anti-racist movement, anti-capitalist movement, so that we can rethink our way of life through good living. Because that good living that we Black women brought to the debate today, because we still continue debating more with all the people who are being murdered and more now in the pandemic. Thank you. Thank you, Shanina, for the patience. We should be finishing and wrapping up, and we still have a closing. Hello, everyone. We know that it's also feminist to respect the times and the language and the coordination, because if not, there are comrades who will not have time to speak. I think that in these 20 years, it should also be a learning point to respect times. I am part of the abortion campaign for a free, safe abortion in Argentina, and we work with more than 700 movements, NGOs, cultural centers, feminist centers. We are bonded federally, nationally, territorially, in social networks. We have been in the making for 15 years. It has to do with abortion, free abortion in Argentina. And in December, in Argentina, after many, many meetings, plenary sessions, marches, movements in the streets, we've conquered free legal abortion. And as of Sunday, any person in our country has the possibility to voluntarily interrupt their pregnancy up to the 14th week of pregnancy. And we will continue working in this. This is a historic moment for our country. On the day of the march, in the middle of a pandemic, we had 120 meetings, marches in the streets. This struggle has become a trans-border struggle. More than 20 countries have participated. Feminist colleagues and comrades have participated in the marches in the streets. And in 2018, this green handkerchief has become a symbol of this struggle. I'm trying to respect my 3 minutes, so I know I'm speaking quickly. It's going to be a problem for the translators. I'm sorry, but when we were talking about fundamentalism and radicalism, we have to be on the lookout. This is already a right, but we have to pay attention. We have to be aware. We know by the Uruguayans, the Italians, that sometimes it's difficult to access and we are looking at Poland and Honduras, that they have had backfires in the last weeks. We are looking at the comrades who have been arrested for aborting, for having an abortion, but that is not the main purpose. That's not said that that's not what they're taking to jail, but that is the underlying reason. Here in Argentina today, we are demanding with this law that all the women who have gone to jail because of an abortion be freed. So now I'd like to give a warm regards that this free and legal abortion movement, I hope that it can be possible also in your countries, and I will see you in the next forum. Maria, thank you. And now we're going to Spain. Here in Spain, good evening. Here in Spain, it's 9:30 p.m. I am from Redes Network from Spain. I will speak about transforming economies and to take the experience and voice of feminists in this forum. The landmarks of this process that was around 2 years long in 2020. The forum was in Portugal and could not be held presently because of the pandemic. I'd like to share something. The result of this process is that transforming economies, we can build a feminist result, a feminist exit to these crises. I'd like to highlight the house. We shared a diversity of voices and looks from north to south, from the local to the macro, in a conference with more than 80 comrades, networks, and organizations from different parts of the world. The debates of feminism in these spaces was a collective effort. We actively listened, and it was a challenge to have feminism in the center because of the technological challenges. And statements and landmark cases like the March 8th. And I will share with you all the statements by chat. And we should also comment that we put a feminist voice in the forum to dialogue on transforming economies. This forum went from local to the global. For example, against the politics of Bolsonaro, the Brazilian president. And under quarantine, we shared different voices during the quarantine to build together strategies against the pandemic, and how to take care of ourselves and the protocols, the health protocols during the quarantine, and the proposal to build an economic model. How? Supporting the struggles, by supporting the struggles, supporting activists, and supporting anti-racist struggles. And we had to learn how to deal with this new normal, and we struggled against that new normal and that overload in the houses of this new schematics of this social political movement, a new normal. And I'd like to share a phrase that resonates. We want an economy for life and not at the expense of life. Thank you very much. I think I try to respect my 3 minutes. So, first of all, I'm truly sorry the methodology was planned out, but we have the translators who have to leave us at 6 p.m. So we'd like to say that this third session that was going to be strategies, we're thinking about passing it to the 31st, which is Laura's topic, which is that one will think of strategies and initiatives. And that third part was about that, strategies and initiatives. We had some comrades that had concrete ideas. So there are 3 more speakers. If any of the people who are going to speak would like to give the floor to someone else, it's okay. But we like to say that the third part of this session will be moved to the 31st. in the space where we will think of strategies. Now we have 3 more people, Pamela, Adriana, Emilia, Camila. So maybe we're going to give you the floor briefly to say why you're here, and then Flora to give us her view on this initiative. Thank you. Pamela, how much time do I have then? 2 minutes. 2 minutes, and then we will resume on the 31st. So my name is Pamela. I'm a feminist of the 8 de Marzo feminist collective movement. We fight for a class feminism. And I wanted to share some reflections after a long process of construction that started on March 8th, 2018, under the instruction workers, contingent workers. And we started an articulation process and a feminist fighting process that has matured, and it has become a very important movement. It has adopted a feminist fight struggle where we have 14 main points, but the core is to place life in the center. I'm sorry, but there is a mic open and it's truly difficult to speak. So as I was saying, to place life at the core of our program, our tool is a strike, feminist strikes, that we started striking on the streets, and we call it strike because it's on our bodies and our struggles that they be paid and fairly paid and remunerated. And our country, the right to strike is denied to us by the current legislation. So we are feminists because we understand that it is a process where feminism should be the center of our existence in an ongoing struggle to fight. So we need to change the current situation, and we need to unite to fight for a better territory, better future. In 2020, more than 2 million people went for strike on the streets, and we were able to prove that we are a powerful movement with a core sense of feminism to fight for life. The government by Sebastián Piñera, right-winged, is constantly trying to oppress us, and it fosters inequality, it destroys employment, it has increased homicides, and it's currently exploiting the ecosystem, and we are fighting against the approval of free trade agreement, the 11. They haven't done anything but ratify the atrocities of this government. We need a radical transformation of the system in which we are living in. We need a government. We have a government that has used the pandemic to increase bad living of the people. It has destroyed formal employment, and it demands more of us. So in these premises, from the feminist side, we unionize along with the unions, we consider that our struggle cannot be pushed forward anymore. We are living in a process, in a space that we do not like, a country that is governed by the companies. And if not for the millions of people that went out on strike, it would be a total authoritarian regime. So here, the people should have the right to draft our constitution. We're fighting for a constitution that grants free reproductive rights like abortion, land rights, labor rights, non-paid employments, and a fair health system to live a free life and no more impunity to the people who are constantly oppressing the weakest. So a new feminist construction and constitution that does not say that the man is the core of the family. So we've been on feminist strikes to articulate with other comrades, feminist comrades, in our territory, and this is the feminist platform. So this challenge, we need to take this challenge to the streets, to the governments, an anti-capitalist, anti-patriarchal movement. Next February, we would like to deepen this space, and we consider that the pandemic, which is a result of capitalism in which we live, urges us to go on strike, which we are going on again on March 8th, 2021, to show that feminist struggles need to be heard and resonate all over the world. We have nothing to lose by organizing and striking to fight for our collective rights because it is worth living. Thank you very much, comrades. This was a longer text that I can share with you. So, thank you. Pamela, we're going to try to continue with this. The third session is going to have a time to debate. Thank you, Pamela, and I am so sorry for the short time. Emilia. Hello, comrades. It's a pleasure to see you. It's a pleasure to hear from you. I can see that we have a feminist heart still beating in this nation, so it's a pleasure to be here. I don't want to take up much of your time. I'm speaking on gender equality from Mexico. I work for a movement here in Mexico and as organizer of the working group of feminist financing for development, and to recognize the feminist efforts in this organization. So I'm going to say two things. Our efforts is to try to mobilize the feminist movement on a macroeconomic agenda to recognize that the strongest impact is being taken by the population. And so we need to try to participate in all the socio-economic impacts. So we are mobilizing the campaign of campaigns, an agenda where we have a packet of macro demands that is impacting all the movements at all levels in all regions, and we will tell you about it. On the 31st, we're going to be in Agora, so we hope you look us up in the program, and we will tell you about our articulation with the feminist movement. And we'd also like to invite you to tomorrow's event, Mobilizing for Feminist Economic Justice, where we will have participants of women workers discussing the challenges of mobilizing for this macroeconomic environmental agenda, this subsidy generated by women. How we mobilize, what are our challenges, what we need to learn, what is our potential in this historic moment. We will be talking about mobilization, and on Sunday we will be in the Agora. So we will be in this feminist forum speaking with all of you. A great shout out and hugs and love and tequila for all of you. We know that the bonds are untouched. So as best regards for all of you.
Thank you very much. The comrade of Abia Ayala, if you're there. Good afternoon, comrades. I'm part of the Abia Ayala group in Bolivia, and I think it's very important to meet in this World Social Forum in the face of the next forum to bring this experiences from the Abya Ayala, which is composed of all this type of indigenous peoples, popular territorial communities. We believe we can contribute this experience of questioning racist and anti-patriarchal fight, which is the food of this forum. We believe that in these meetings of different territories and different bodies does not only show the strength of the feminist forum, but also the character of anti-patriarchy of the forum. In Argentina, Colombia, Bolivia, we have been denouncing the violations against human rights and women's rights. We have presented the denounce against the murder of Berta Cáceres in Honduras, of girls in Guatemala, and now the campaign of They Were Girls, due to the girls murdered in Paraguay and the kidnapping of another girl. We demand her apparition with life. So this is our fight from several feminist collectives. We want to have a clear stance in the face of states who are administering this pandemic. We think this is key to denounce
coloniales que están reproduciendo los estados con
genocide, fascist policies that states are producing with the pretext of pandemic. And we need to acknowledge the learning within the forum to avoid places of violence. We have created a petition to have Julieta Paredes be left out of this forum, because these spaces should be spaces in which there is no violence exerted. We need to learn these topics to take care of our spaces. So that was my contribution. Thank you very much. I will give the floor to my comrade Flora. I'm sorry, Camila. Camila was first from AWID, and then Flora. Camila, hi. Hello. Good afternoon. I'm from Brazil. My name is Camila. I'm in support of women's movements and feminisms. I work towards the goal of having a gender around the world. Historically, we have participated in several editions of the World Social Forum, for instance, the one held in Senegal, in which we presented data, the impact of the crisis and the impact on the life of women. Also in Tunisia, we presented proposals to work towards a more fair, more just economy. And recently in the Salvador Forum, I had the pleasure to participate in with many of the comrades here present, and it was a very tough and emotional moment for us in Brazil. It's still a great trauma that we carry on our backs, the murder of Marielle Franco, our militant women, that has not any justice yet. It has been really sad for all women in the world, especially for us Brazilians. We have some criticisms to make because, as many comrades said before, especially towards combating racism and bringing racism as key to open up dialogue, but it's still a dialogue that has been learning over the past few years in the face of fascist governments, and also as regards structure of several movements. We believe it's still a very strong space, political space, due to the marvelous meeting of social feminist movements. It's one of the few spaces in which this happens. So to answer the question as to why we are still on this path, well, the possibility of meeting, of having this experience, even though it's in a virtual mode. I believe the forum is a space to evaluate our work, a space to sit down, to breathe, and to look at what we have already done, to create strategies, possibilities that are radical in a common agenda. We believe that we need to have hope and to create strategies, solid, strong strategy to face the future, Bolsonaro, Trump, and all those that will come. We believe that another world is definitely possible, and we need to be hopeful, and we need to carry on with the struggle. Thank you very much for this space and for the work you have been doing. It was a very long process to achieve this goal, so thank you very much. So we will wrap up by thanking the translators, the interpreters that are on the other side that did not drop the mic one moment. They accompanied us. Aura Palabra, Linguistic Solutions. Thank you very much for being here with us and accompanying the voices of all regions and all countries in different languages with the love with which you have shared your experiences. These are 20 years of history. We recognize ourselves in those struggles, and the struggles that have been added. Having there the campaign from Chile and from Argentina who have fought so hard in the streets, and as Tita Torres said, resisting. So in that line, this workshop had the aim of recovering history and at the same time stating complex issues. I will not say this any better than Betania. Betania said constructing alliances and also facing conflict. So we need to be able to face conflict and to meet. So this is our invitation for you here from Buenos Aires, as for me, is to create a route map, a map to construct this together in all struggles, as you all said, in this forum and all thematic fora. We need to be present, all of us, and in that map, we need to build these strategies. In this context that are very hard at this time in Brazil, you are facing fascism, as you well said, and also comrades from Africa are fighting this. So we invite you to the Agora on the 31st. Ale, Gina put this in the chat, the Google Drive folder to register. The idea is to bring those ideas towards the Mexico World Social Forum. And as we are seeing with the pandemic today, we need to put health, a feminist look upon health as a priority. So we have been planning the forum for the 2022. And until then, we have to build all this together. So thank you very much, Gina, Ale, who have been coordinating all the team, Maria Tienza, people from No Tan Distintas, people from Repem who created the videos to share all this material with you. During this 3.5-hour workshop, Ale, I want to thank Rossi as well, who is the one who makes this possible in the forum. She was going to moderate with me, but she is really working hard. If you want to turn on your cameras to say hello, we can take a picture. Thank you very much. Claudia, we need to speak with you.
Sim, coloquei o link aqui das fotos do Fórum Social Mundial.
I put a link here of the pictures here. All the stories you have been telling, it's there in the images.
Abrazos a todas.
Big hugs to all of you. Complete the form, please.
Gracias.
Foi
ótimo.
Tchau, Mina. Tchau, Ale.
Abrazos.
Chao, chao, chao.
Chao, chao.
Nos vemos en
Chao.
Rosy. Abra palabra, María, todos.
Vani, que bom ver
Y
você.
ahora que estamos juntos, y ahora que sí nos ven, abajo el patriarcado se va a caer, se va a caer.
Sí, lembro.
Que vai vencer, que vai vencer.
Un foro de mujeres mundial.
Sim.
Chao.
Essa ideia foi boa.
Adorei.
Tchau a todas.
Se eles não querem a gente vai fazer um foro de mulheres.
Abrazos fuertes.
Chao.
Chao, Adriana.
Claro.
Adriana.
Alessandra, querida.
Chao.
Chao, queridas.
Adiós,
Chao,
adiós,
queridas.
adiós.
Chao, chao, chao.
Marilla, te mandé el mail.